Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be covering something hilarious, and that is the Unkillable Harlequin combo. So before we get into this, I want to give you guys a little bit of a background on this combo because it's existed since the beginning of the edition. However, it has only been since recently that we've actually seen this combo unfold in its full glory. And the reason why we really just didn't see this is because we had better options for securing primary objectives. However, that, my friends, has been starting to change. With the nerfs of the Night Spinner, Wraithguard, and of course, Phantasm, we've needed faster units that can also survive on objectives. A lot of people are turning to things like the Avatar of Cain and a max unit of Wraithblades, but the problem there is those units are pretty expensive. And of course, the two armies that are doing really well right now, both the Necrons and the Custodes, have really good advantages against those two units, the Wraithblades and of course the Avatar of Cain. Because typically speaking, if you have Wraithblades or the Avatar of Cain out on primaries, they're going to be out in the open, they're going to be able to be shot at, and of course assaulted. But even so, your Wraithblades and Avatar of Cain might well secure you a primary objective for a majority of the game. However, that's only one objective. You still need to, capture other objectives on the battlefield if you're going to stand a chance of outscoring your opponent. You need other units that can be able to at least hold a primary objective for one round or so that you can score additional primary points. This isn't always easy to do, especially against really tough factions like Custodes and Necrons. And in general, it's going to be very hard to succeed holding objectives with your fragile aspect warriors, unless of course your entire opponent's army is obliterated. And as a result of needing something to secure primary objectives that is, maybe a little bit less expensive than a huge Wraithblade blob or Avatar of Cain, especially with the Ynnari who don't have access to the Avatar of Cain, we've started to see this combo slip into competitive play. So without further ado, let us go ahead and jump right into it and talk about what we're going to be looking at in today's video. So first of all, we're going to be looking at what this broken combo is and what units it needs to work. And, just like I said in the title of this video, this build, when played correctly, is virtually unkillable by a vast majority of the units in the game. But it does require careful play, and it does require a specific build, and of course, correct positioning. We're going to be talking about what the combo does, and of course, its applications, and lastly, how to use the combo effectively on the battlefield, and I will give you a diagram about how it should look when it's all said and done. All right, so what is this broken combo, right? Because at its face, on paper, it actually doesn't look very broken at all. We've seen this combination before, right? But if played right, and if used correctly, it's actually a nearly unkillable Harlequin unit that is not only very hard to deal with at range, but is also very hard to deal with in melee combat. And how it does this is it utilizes obscuring terrain or line-of-sight blocking terrain coupled with model resurrection to stay in control of primary objectives. And again, on paper, the unit doesn't really look that durable, but with the terrain layouts of competitive play, it starts to become really apparent just how hard this unit is to deal with. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what units this combination needs to work. So first of all, at its base, you need an MSU unit, so a small unit, a minimum unit of Harlequins, and that is going to cost you 75 points. Pretty cheap. Harlequins are known to be, pretty cheap melee for the Eldar, and they've had some success so far in tournament play, and we're even seeing more Harlequin lists podium at events, which is awesome, but I don't think it's necessarily all down to the troop, because the troop is, again, a weaker melee unit. It is good for the points, but it's not going to alone win you games. We're also going to take Yvraine for 100 points. So Yvraine does quite a bit for the unit, but she is 100 points as well. We're also going to take the Vizark. Now, I said he's optional, and he is optional. You don't have to take him with the unit. He is 90 points, but he's one of the things that makes the unit super hard to deal with, not only at range, but also in melee combat. And the total cost for this combination is going to come out at 175 without the Vizark and 265 with the Vizark. which is considerably cheaper than both your Wraithblade combination, your big unit of Wraithblades, with the Spirit Seer and the Avatar of Cain. But wait a second. 265 points for a Toughness 3 unit? How is this even close to Unkillable, and what does it even offer, right? We have a lot of units in the army that have slightly more durability than the average Eldar. I mean, of course, we have Warlocks, we have a bunch of different things, right, that are slightly more durable than our Aspect Warriors. That doesn't necessarily mean that the unit is unkillable. But again, the unit is not just what it seems initially. So if you look at the unit at its face, just basically what it is on paper, it has a 4+ invul save because it's a Harlequin unit. It has a pretty strong close combat punch because, of course, you have your Vrain. We have the Visarch in the unit as well. Your Vrain gives them 5+ feel no pain and can resurrect D3 models on a 2+. Plus, like I said, she has great combat damage herself with devastating wounds. The Visarch as well gives the unit fights first and has a solid melee profile with precision. So on paper, that's what the unit is. But of course, we wouldn't be here if we didn't talk about what is making this unit unkillable. So basically, this unit is both really difficult to deal with in combat because of the fights first and the powerful melee prowess of the unit. If something charges into this unit, if you're on an objective, simply put, the enemy unit is most likely going to die. Unless it's a very powerful walker type vehicle that can also walk through walls, it's not going to have a lot of effect against this unit because fights first means this unit's going to be hitting it first and doing a lot of damage before anything gets through. Now, if it is a walker, of course, it can tank shock, and mortal wounds are very good against this unit and one of its weaknesses. But then again, mortal wounds via tank shock are also strong against the Avatar of Cain and Wraithblades as well. So, that's just kind of something we have to deal with. At least this unit gets a 5+ feel no pain against it. But of course, what makes this unit so difficult to deal with is not only its combat prowess and the fact that, it does have fights first and can typically destroy most enemy units before they get to attack, but it's also really hard to kill in one enemy shooting attack because of the 4+ invulnerable save and the 5+ feel no pain, and when used with line of sight blocking terrain and obscuring terrain, also means your opponent will have only one chance to shoot and kill the entire unit. And typically speaking, people aren't going to be able to bring that much firepower against you. There's only a couple of combinations out there that can actually deal with this unit in one shooting attack. Now, something you guys will have to look out for is the Hypercrypt Legion's, kind of monolith immortal bomb. Dropping that many sustained hits against you, regardless of whether or not you have a 4+ invul save and a 5+ feel no pain or not, is going to drop the unit very fast. But if you know you're going against Hypercrypt Legion, there's a way that you can counter this with Phantasm. Because again, this unit is a very small unit, and typically speaking, you can hide most of them behind line of sight blocking terrain, or in ruins, or behind obscuring terrain, and be totally fine. And again, if the Necrons try to charge you out of the monolith using their stratagem, then you can simply just wipe them out on charge, because you have fights first. But in most cases, you should be fine. A lot of armies out there just simply don't have the amount of shooting required to bring down the entire unit in one shot. And both of these, both their melee capabilities and their range durability, makes them excellent for primaries. But I haven't yet explained how this combo is used effectively on the battlefield, right? Because a lot of you might be thinking right now, well, Proxy Hammer, yeah, but primary objectives are out in the open most of the time. How are you able to actually put this unit on an objective and actually survive to the next turn where you can capture it and score points? Well, having said that, the unit has to be positioned correctly. If it's not positioned correctly, it's going to get put down pretty hard, and you're going to be sitting there wondering how this unit was ever close to unkillable. The unit needs to be positioned in such a way that it is both controlling an objective and also out of line of sight once a single model is killed. And thanks to the Leviathan terrain layouts, this is very possible. And not only is this possible, but it's relatively easy to achieve with a unit that has 8 movement, and of course can use Fate Dice to advance an automatic 6. So just to give you guys kind of an idea of the terrain layouts, there's a couple of different terrain layouts, but all of them pretty much start pretty close to an objective And also, you're going to be in a position that is just slightly behind obscuring terrain on any one of the side objectives. So each side of the battlefield has a terrain piece that is close to a primary objective in the middle of the field. So if we're playing from the bottom side, there is a piece of terrain on the left-hand side of the battlefield that is exactly an inch or two away from the left-hand primary objective in no man's land. And this is the perfect opportunity to grab that objective with this unit and basically position yourself in such a way that only one of your Harlequin models is controlling the objective, just barely towing the line, and, the rest of your unit is behind a line of sight blocking wall. So in case you guys are wondering, it's going to look something like this. First turn you're going to move right up, you're going to advance, you're going to put one Harlequin just barely towing the objective right there. And, I would probably suggest this be one of your, shuriken pistol Harlequins, not the fusion pistol ones, but just your basic ones. And then the rest of the unit is going to line up right behind that wall. Now, in most competitive settings, this wall is going to block line of sight on the first floor completely, which means your Harlequins will not be able to be shot at from the side, from the front, and realistically, because it's so close to your own deployment zone, if you screen properly with other units, they won't be able to attack you from the back as well. Even with Deep Strike, if you have something like a unit of Rangers or something like that, you can easily screen this out. Even an Autarch Wayleaper, if positioned correctly, can screen out a lot of Deep Strikers that would, normally come in behind and shoot them to death. Not that a single unit of Deep Strikers like Inceptors or, something along those lines would be able to kill an entire unit with a 4+ invul and a 5+ feel no pain, but better safe than sorry, right? It's better to screen it out if you can. If you can't, though, it is always fun to bait your opponent into something they think is really juicy and then only to discover that it was a huge mistake, which it's kind of like what this unit does. You can easily bait an Inceptor squad into deep striking behind you within 3 inches of Yvrain's unit, and then laugh as the plasma shots fail to do any real damage. And again, you could always also use lightning fast reflexes on this unit as well, unlike Wraithblades. Okay, so the other thing to keep in mind is that if the enemy shoots you from the front, which they probably will, right? You're going to have that lone Harlequin out there, that very ballsy Harlequin out there just sitting on the objective. They probably will try to shoot it and kill it, right? Because they don't want to give you those free primary points. And like I said before, a lot of times what they're going to do is they're going to try to shoot you off the objective. You're going to remove the Harlequin on the objective, maybe another model or two if you roll unlucky. And then in your command phase on anything but a 1, you're going to place another Harlequin, at least one other Harlequin, on that objective, and you are going to be in control of that objective. Now, in a lot of cases, this is going to simply allow you to keep control on this objective against anything that's trying to shoot you. But what if something is just simply moving on to the objective? Maybe they're not trying to shoot you, they're just trying to out-OC you. And a smart player will do something like this, but the good news is your unit, and this is, again, why you take the Visarch with this unit, your unit actually carves up enemy units in close combat. So if a unit does that, they just put bodies on the objective, it's a free kill for you. You simply walk up with the unit, you destroy it in close combat, or in some cases, you can simply move Yvrain up, again, just, barely outside of the wall there, so that she can shoot, and then you obliterate the unit that way. Yvrain has some seriously good shooting against infantry, so if your opponent doesn't, stack enough models on that objective, Yvrain might just be able to kill them by yourself. And then you'll be in a safer position to either phantasm back or perhaps even fire and fade back, depending on how many command points you have. Just keep in mind that because Yvrain's model is typically so big, you probably will need a roll of a 2 at least on phantasm to be able to go back behind the wall. But, these are situations where 5 out of 6 times you're going to succeed in being able to either bring a Harlequin back and capture the objective or, phantasm back far enough with Yvrain that, even if your opponent does just try to sit on the objective with, a chaff unit or a, very sacrificial unit, you can simply just wipe them right off. And the next turn, your opponent's going to have the same dilemma. What do I do about this single Harlequin on the objective that is going to be controlling it all game long? And because this unit is operating in a different way than a lot of really hardcore primary objective controllers and is lower points, your opponent's not going to be able to simply ignore it and go after other objectives, right? Like with a squad of Wraithblades, your opponent may just have to ignore that objective and go for the 2 other objectives on the battlefield. And this unit is also just simply harder to ignore. Yvraine is a big threat both against infantry and in combat. The Vizarch is a very good duelist who can kill characters pretty easily. So, this is an assassination threat as well. If you draw assassination, this unit has a pretty good threat range and can easily get into range of a character to kill. This unit, for a 265-point price tag, is deceptively good at scoring objectives. Not only primaries, of course, but, oftentimes you can also score on secondary objectives too. And if your opponent is running a melee-centric force, you have fights first to deal with it. So it's not exactly like a unit of Storm Guardians. Storm Guardians are much cheaper. I love Storm Guardians, don't get me wrong, but Storm Guardians don't hold up against things like World Eaters or Orcs, right? They just don't hold up in close combat. This unit, however, does. And again, if used correctly and used cleverly, your opponent will have little opportunity to actually wipe this unit out and steal the objective away from you. And also, that's not even to mention the other units in your army. We've just been talking about this unit so far. But the truth is that your opponent is going to have to be dealing with a lot of other stuff at the same time. Maybe your opponent does have an answer to this unit. Maybe your opponent is able to survive the fights first that your unit can dish out, and then also just obliterate your unit in combat. Orcs can definitely do it, and so can World Eaters, because they are insane in close combat, right? However, you are going to have other stuff in your army. If you are able to bait an expensive unit of 8-bound, for example, or a giant Orc Nob squad with an Orc Warboss attached, you can simply just phantasm out of line of sight behind the ruin and force your opponent to charge past the objective if they want to kill Yvraine and her Harlequin buddies. And now your opponent's completely out in the open. They have to make a really long charge. And if they don't succeed, even if they're on the objective, you have plenty of things that can see that unit now and wipe it out. And it's done absolutely nothing. And furthermore, that opens up a lot of secondary opportunities for you to score points there, via Assassinate, like we talked about earlier, or Extend Battle Lines, which is another easy one. As long as you control your home objective, you cap an objective in no man's land by the end of your turn, and you get victory points for that. All while also being able to destroy your opponent's army, right? So even against combat-oriented factions, this combination does extremely well, especially if you know what you're doing. So in conclusion, even though I've previously kind of written off Yvraine with the Vizarch in larger units, especially just because it's such a high cost, using them in this way has totally changed my mind about the applications of the unit. If used correctly, it can effectively lock many opponents out of a primary objective. And while it may be a large investment in points, it is significantly cheaper than both a max unit of Wraithblades and the Avatar of Cain. And we know how good these units are at controlling primary objectives. And yes, even though Yvraine and friends are a more finesse style primary objective holder, when used either with the Avatar of Cain and Wraithblades or just solo, you can definitely score a lot of primary points throughout the battle. And if supported correctly, they can actually counter a lot of the enemy's efforts to wipe them off the objective and take the objective for themselves. Alright guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and thank you so much to all my patrons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last year. Your help has greatly improved the channel and helped it grow significantly. If you do want to become a Patreon member and help support the channel, I have free trials activated, which will grant you permanent access to our Discord community, of course, at no cost to you, it being a free trial. And, of course, our Discord community is made up of Eldar enthusiasts who love talking about strategy, tactics, and, of course, hobbying. I will leave the link for that in the description below. I'm also an Amazon affiliate and have a channel store page, so if you want to grab some discounted Eldar miniatures on Amazon or some Eldar-inspired apparel on my channel store page to rep your local game store, I will leave the links for those in the description as well. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching once again. And let me know what you guys think about this Quin combo. I think it is a home run, but, you know, I may be overlooking something. But I think with the changes that we've seen in January, this is looking to be a pretty good unit to holding primary objectives, just maybe in a different way than Wraith Blades and, of course, the Avatar of Cain. All right, everybody, that's going to be it. Peace out, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. See you later.